Next work session is the Juvenile Justice Services update. Ms. Brown.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman Winslow, members of the board, Dr. Casey. Very honored to be here, and thank you for taking the time to listen about our department today. I'm Marilyn Brown. I'm the Director of Juvenile Justice Services. I do want to take this moment, though, to thank the board for not only embarking on the PACE study, but for also funding the recommendations. Probably for the first time in several years, we'll be fully staffed. And having met with each of my staff, they are really, really grateful. They feel their jobs are valued by the county as well as their loyalty. So I just really wanted to share that with you as a department director, the impact you have had on employees' lives. So thank you. All right, so we were newly created in 2020 to serve, support, protect, and empower court-involved, not only juvenile offenders, but juvenile victims as well. So our agency includes the Juvenile Detention Home. It includes what we call the Adolescent Resource Pathways, which is also known by the acronym CARP. It used to be just one program. It is now a hub of our community-based programs. The Davis Child Advocacy Center falls under our department, and Janelle Beverly and her wonderful staff were here not too long ago providing an update, so I'll just give you a very brief kind of sneak peek at what they're up to. This will focus more on our juvenile justice programs, and then also serve as a liaison to our 12th District Court Services Unit, who are our state partners offering probation and parole services. So I start with a fairly complicated slide, and I'm not going to get into it, but I wanted a graphic depiction for you that we really do operate on a continuum. It's all about providing the right intervention at the right time, providing low-risk offenders with the least restrictive environment, and then reserving those secure confinement for our highest risk offenders. So I did want to point out to you at the bottom, it shows our entire wealth of services and programs here in Chesterfield, and I'll touch on those briefly. But it's not by happenstance. It's very deliberate, using objective, evidence-based programmings, assessments to make hopefully the right decisions. I will point out we have almost 65,000 children in Chesterfield, and at the high end of this continuum, we only committed 13 to the State Department of Juvenile Justice, which speaks a lot to all of the programs and services we are able to provide to hopefully interrupt our juvenile offender cycles. While I am using FY20 data, the COVID years were a bit of an anomaly with schools being closed and our courts being a bit backlogged, so I thought that might be a better representation. So what do we do? Again, we use data-driven decision-making instruments, objective instruments to make decisions at critical points. We use a range of evidence-based programming. One of the things we do is continually evaluate our programs. We do that every year with our stakeholders, which includes our schools, all of our partner agencies, mental health, social services. We have so many children that overlap our system, so it's so important that we engage in those discussions. Law enforcement, our judges are highly invested and involved in that, in those evaluations of what we're offering and fine-tune those programs. And again, we reserve our secure confinement for our highest risk offenders. So I wanted to kind of start at the beginning of the continuum and how we divert cases. So just to give you a snapshot of how we compare to some of our neighboring jurisdictions as well as similarly sized jurisdictions, that's how many intake cases we had, so cases that come before our court services unit. But we're pretty proud of this. Compared to some of our counterparts, we certainly successfully divert more children, a higher percentage of children, from entering the court system. Because once families and children get caught up in the court system, it's very difficult to get disentangled. It does not mean we are not intervening. It just means we're providing a more appropriate resource, usually, and again, in concert with our partners such as our CSB, CIR, all of our wonderful resources in the community. Of our diversion-eligible cases, we're proud that more than 56% were resolved successfully, again, comparing ourselves to some of our other jurisdictions. So this is our range of our community-based programs and services, and I'll just touch on those briefly. Our court services unit offers a lot of diversion programs, shoplifter, assault diversion, again in partnership with our many other juvenile serving agencies. We have a family resources coordinator, and she works with families on the front end, a lot of domestic issues, assault diversion. She also works with kids on the back end when they're transitioning out of our secure detention home to make sure that they're connected to the resources that they need. Our adolescent day reporting program is a nice alternative for kids who've been suspended or expelled from school. If they're on probation, they will attend that program. So during those school hours, they're provided with one-on-one instruction as well as kind of a structured program of care. We provide the transportation for that program as well. Our court navigator and restorative justices coordinator kind of holds the hands of families while they're going through the court process so that they can be successful in complying with any court orders, answer the questions. I mean, as sure as you all know, especially you, Mr. Winslow, the juvenile court process can be very confusing. We use a lot of different terminology. So she's there, and she was retired from the Department of Social Services, so she's a wonderful asset for families. Our Education Vocational Connections Coordinator helps to get kids back into school or reconnected with school or in school for the very first time, or gets them on more of a vocational track and connects them with resources. She's been very successful with connecting our kids. We have 2 new programs for this year. We're partnering with Chesterfield County Public Schools for kids who have first-time drug offenses. They can be referred to CARP, where they will come to the day reporting program, so they won't just be idle at home. They'll have somewhere to go and keep up with their schoolwork, as well as being offered a substance abuse prevention intervention program through mental health support services. So again, a wonderful collaboration with schools and mental health. We are also partnering with our Child Advocacy Center and the police department for those children who have some problematic sexual behaviors but we don't want to charge them as a sex offender. We want to get them the help that they need so that they won't become a sex offender. So we have some funding set aside now to provide those services, and again, partnering with mental health to provide those much needed resources. And then we have 2 more, our home incarceration program, which is our electronic monitoring program, our diversion program. It allows children to remain at home with their families, connected to schools, jobs, while they're going through the court process, so in lieu of secure detention. That's been a wonderful, valuable resource for our community, as well as our community service program. We are one of the only localities that offers an actual program where judges don't just give children a brochure and parents are kind of stuck making cold calls and trying to get their kids connected to perform community service. We do all of that for them. We provide the transportation, we provide the partnerships, and we also work around parent schedules. We offer evenings, weekday evenings, weekend times, so we have a very successful rate of completion for community service hours. So then, of course, at the highest end of our spectrum, of our continuum, is our secure detention home. These messages here are notes that our kids have left to other kids who are coming into detention maybe for the first time, trying to remind them that while it does seem like things are a little dire, this might be a good opportunity for you to turn things around. So again, we have a pretty complex population in our detention home. We serve children at all ends of the system, very first time getting into trouble, and then children who, of course, have been incarcerated for some time and have committed a parole violation, let's say. So we have children, what we call predispositional, so they're going through the court process, but that could mean many things. It could be children who are being tried as adults. We currently have 3 first-degree murder, children with first-degree murder charges who are being tried as adults. They're all co-defendants, so we have to keep them separated, so they're on separate units. We have children that are being restored for mental competency, if they're appealing their sentence, if they're awaiting for a residential placement, as we know how challenging that is, because a lot of places don't want kids who have been in trouble with the juvenile justice system. So one of the things we are doing is trying to work with those children to get them ready for that next step, get them acclimated to residential care so that they can be successful in a less secure environment. Then we also serve children who are actively serving their sentences in detention. So we have a local 6-month program where kids don't get committed to DJJ, they come to us instead, and we provide all kinds of services, individual treatment, family therapy, school re-engagement, so that they can be successful when they leave. And then at the high end of the spectrum, we have a contract with DJJ to, in lieu of a child, let's say go to Bon Air, they can come to our facility and serve anywhere from maybe 3 months, 12 months, 14 months. It just depends on however long DJJ assigns their length of stay. Those children can be from anywhere in the state of Virginia. Normally, they are close to home, so we take kids from Richmond, Petersburg, so they'll have access to family, as well as our connections with some of our regional partners. And then we hold children, we call them cap holds. Those are children who have just been committed to DJJ. They may be going to Bon Air or another facility, but we'll hold them temporarily. So you can imagine it can be challenging holding kids at all very different ends of the system and kind of where they are and meeting those needs. So we do, our job is to obviously hold residents accountable, protect the community, protect the children that we serve. And so we do have a lot of challenges, but our goal is to provide that structured schedule, get children stabilized, get them used to complying with rules. So some of our challenges obviously include behavioral health challenges. We're definitely seeing an uptick in those. But how we meet those is with wonderful mental health staff, again, in partnership with Mental Health Support Services. We have 2 staff from their department embedded in our facility. We also have our own full-time clinician that works across the juvenile justice system. We won a NACO and a VACO award for that because he really does try to figure out what the kids need and connect them to that. I think you all probably are not surprised, 50 to 60% of our children have a diagnosed mental health condition. So working with those children, making sure that we can get them back on track with taking their meds, getting them access to med consultations, access to psychiatrists to ensure that we can continue them on those meds. Educational challenges, our children usually aren't very successful in school and aren't excited to go to school, but we have a wonderful partnership with Chesterfield County Public Schools as well as the Department of Education, who funds and oversees the school programs in Virginia's juvenile detention homes. So in the past 2 years, we had 14 children either get their GED or graduate with their high school diploma, and we feel that's incredible. Some of our kids come in reading on a 3rd grade reading level, so very proud of that. Yes, sir.
I saw recently on another board that they had just had a graduation there. And I think I was actually, several years back, able to attend a graduation. I think was the 2nd one ever at the center. And that was because there was only one person graduating.
Yes, they're always the valedictorian of their class.
They were the valedictorian. Their parents got to speak. Yeah. It was probably the most personable graduation that I have ever attended. And it was touching to see that at that time, a lot of the people teaching in the detention center had never seen a kid graduate from their program. And so it was good for the teachers as well because they got to actually see the fruit of their work. So as crazy as it sounds, the most personable graduation I've ever been was in our detention center.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. We appreciate it. Yeah, we were the only ones having in-person graduations during COVID. They were outside and they got a little hot, but we still held them because it's a major milestone, and we don't want to take that away from the kids or their family. It's still certainly something that should be celebrated and honored and getting the kids on the right track. Medical, last I just want to touch on is our medical challenges. A lot of our kids aren't, regularly seeing doctors, dentists. But I will take this opportunity to thank you all and the county for the foresight. And I don't know whose idea it was brilliant to have us connected to the Employee Medical Center. So Dr. McGowan, Laura Jensen provide wonderful oversight for us and connection for us. So we are able to meet a lot of our children's pretty significant medical needs. So I just will kind of go over this slide really quickly, but we cannot do any of what we do without the support of pretty much every department in this county, as well as state entities. One of the things that's not up here, I've got the police, but I don't have their actual PALs, and I should up here. Our kids participated in the PALs program. Our post-D kids were part of the bowling league last summer, and they really enjoyed it, and what a wonderful way to connect law enforcement with kids. As well as our local partnerships. A lot of these partnerships are around our community service sites, and we really appreciate our nonprofit partners giving our kids a chance to be successful and to get those community service hours completed. I know everybody's got a lot of COVID fatigue. I sure do too. But I did want to say it was important, again, for the support we had from the county, especially the wonderful direction of the Employee Medical Center. We really weathered COVID. I know we're still going through it, but we're pretty proud of how we got through it. We're the only place in town you could get a haircut. We thought that's really important. Haircut's really important for the kids. They want to feel good. They want to go to court looking good. So we have a wonderful barber who you'll see there. He came in full shield and gave our kids haircuts. We also were a vaccine site for our kids, which was fantastic. And again, that was through the Employee Medical Center and the Department of Health. So just again, in summary, we have it's a pretty thoughtful continuum of services that we offer with lots of diversion options and detention alternatives, and then using our detention home to serve children at both ends of the system. We're very proud of, that was one of our graduations. We see one of our judges attended. We're proud, we've won several two VACO awards for our detention review committee. They look at every single kid who's in detention. It's a multi-collaborative group, and we figure out what does the child need, how can we step the child down if appropriate, and then what can we do for this kid to keep them successful. We also just won a NACO award for our behavior management program, so we're very proud of that as well. And so just a few things that are on the horizon. Our greenhouse program is blooming. So it's a nice metaphor for, it was a little stagnant for the last 2 years, so it's nice to see things blooming again. Thanks to Dr. Casey and his leadership, we are working on working with procurement. We have a request for proposals to look at our facility needs assessment, not only to look at our future needs in terms of the number of beds we need, but does it make sense to stay where we are given our kind of large square footage, or would it be more cost effective for us to relocate? So we'll be looking at that and anticipate providing you with report recommendations. And then you've probably heard there has been some attention being paid to juvenile justice in the state, especially with detention capacity. It's not unique to Chesterfield. There's 1,400 beds, and by beds I literally mean concrete slabs. We're not talking about necessarily staffed beds, but there are 1,400 juvenile detention beds in the state, and there's about 500. The average daily population was below 500. So folks are looking at this, localities are looking at this. So JLARC just recently completed a report that was looking at the entire juvenile justice system transformation. As a result, they ended up closing 3 of their contract programs. We were certainly not one of them. We have a strong partnership with DJJ, and we anticipate that contract will continue. And then the Virginia Commission on Youth is currently looking at capacity around the state. It is a challenging issue. One of the criticisms JLARC had was around attorney representation. So if you don't have a detention home close by, it's really hard for attorneys to visit with their clients, and we want kids to have good representation. Also, I hope that through this presentation, we are not just an island out there. We are very connected to all of the services and all of the other departments within this community. And so it's really important that our kids stay close to home and receive the services and be connected to those. So it is a complicated issue, but Commission on Youth is looking at it, and we anticipate they'll have recommendations in October. I serve on that advisory group as the representative for our Detention Home Association, so can bring you updates as they are available. So just a quick update on the Child Advocacy Center. They have submitted their application for accreditation, which is very exciting. Their site visit is actually scheduled for October, so we anticipate that they will receive accreditation this calendar year, and that does mean more state funding for them, which is just fantastic. And the other thing is that you all approved, and thank you, for them to have their own full-time mental health clinician, which would be wonderful in providing services to those children in that child-centered facility. So that's what I have, and I'm happy to answer questions.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
That's state accreditation for that facility. Is that what that is?
It is national accreditation, yes. It's a kind of an interesting, it's nationally accredited, but then, of course, the funding comes from the state, so it's, yeah.
And in terms of the success of the programs, I'm sure you all track various data points to keep track of what that success might look like and how it looks over time. But what's the recidivism rate, trends in the last couple of years, and how has COVID affected that?
Great question. Recidivism is high. It is for the deepest end system. So kids who are, in the detention homes in Bon Air Correctional Center, it hovers right below 70%. It's about 68%, and it's about the same for kids coming out of Bon Air as it is for kids coming out of our CPPs or our post-D programs. The challenges are many. The kids come to us with lots of issues and challenges, and if they go back home to dysfunctional families, and it's challenging. So our success rates, of course, are much better when we are able to intervene when kids are at lower risk. And
Thank you. Does that prompt any, Mr. Holland?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I just want to applaud you for the efforts that you've done over the last several years. I followed the center, and you've just done a tremendous job, and that's indicative of the NACO awards you won, national awards, which I applaud you for winning and for making a difference. And so you're a national focus in that regard, so I applaud you. In terms of what we can do to help you, is there anything else we can do to help? For example, with regard to workforce assistance or just help in general, how can we assist you? And how many young people do you have in your facility as of, I guess, the most recent day?
Sure. I'll answer your second question first. We have 25 today.
25, okay.
So, yep. And our numbers have been trending lower. We've been, especially with COVID as well. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. The
Okay.
workforce partnerships are very important. We just formed a partnership with a nonprofit called One Heart, and they are actually piloting a program with us as well as Henrico to provide mentorship and job training for kids coming out of our post-D program. So we're excited about that. It's still in its infancy, so we didn't want to get too excited till we start to see some results, but we can certainly share that. But the biggest thing you did for us was fund the pay study, because we've, again, being able to keep our very good staff who are really talented at working with kids and building rapport with kids, having them feel like that's a career worthwhile and staying. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, I applaud you and thank you as well. And I look forward to hopefully getting back once
Yes,
COVID's gone
please.
to visit with you and
Yes.
have a lunch. I've always enjoyed that over the years, so it's been a pleasure. And I just enjoy the enthusiasm of the young people and their aspirations, what they want to do. And they do come from some challenging situations, as you alluded to. So anything we can do or I can do in that regard, I'm always here to help.
Thank
But
you.
I thank you and applaud you.
Thank you. And I do want to extend that invitation to the rest of the board members if you ever want to come by or if you want to eat lunch and chat with the kids. Dr. Casey's done that, and Mr. Holland's done that. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bryan.